But as I said, I'm going to move on now to a second concept that's worth looking at, which is inequality, which is a term that comes up quite a lot in discussions of society today. And I've always found Thorborn's sort of three-part breakdown of great interest. Can you read that? I'm going to drink a little bit of water right now. Everybody can see. You can see in the back. Yeah. Now, the notion of inequality goes back a long way. You can find it in Plato. You have Rousseau writing about inequality, the sort of original sin of private property that then Marx later took up. And again, Thorborn writing more recently about this. I find this interesting because it's a way of kind of thinking that all of these three different types of inequality are obviously interrelated. So that where you have resource inequality, you definitely have vital inequality, and you likely have existential inequality. Right? But it's also possible to separate them and to maybe isolate one or the other. Right? I'm looking at class in recent years, and I've been inspired by lots of authors to look at class. One of them, quite interestingly, in 2000, Bell Hooks wrote a very interesting book about why class matters. And this is a very interesting book, very autobiographical. She talks about her own life, growing up in rural Kentucky, very modest background, and how she ends up moving to California. She's a scholarship student, and her first roommate is a white girl who is on a working class background. And again, she makes this sort of comment. And I find this quite interesting because, again, this is the whole notion of intersectionality. You know, we can start with class and move into other realms of being in the world, or we can start with race and move into other. I do find intersectionality always starts at some point. And I was going to do the paper today just on intersectionality, but I decided not to. But it's a topic I'm quite interested in. Among other things, I think it's difficult to really do it. It's easy to talk about it, maybe, but it's difficult to, how do you do intersectional research really well? It's quite a challenge. But in any case, you know, if we start from class and move into these issues, and what Bell Hooks does, who's somebody who's always worked intersectionally, if you like, between notions around race and gender, in this book takes on class and sort of weaves it into her narrative. If you like. It's a very fascinating book from 2000. I could have quoted lots of other people who have said class matters, if you like, but I decided to put that one up. What I've done in recent years, I've been reading anything from Marx, looking at Weber, looking at all this classic social theory, sociology, political economy, and looking more recently at people like Bourdieu. Everybody reads Bourdieu. Everybody loves Bourdieu. I could have done a paper criticizing Bourdieu. Bourdieu is not perfect, but anyway. And he's not around to defend himself. But whatever the case, I think there's kind of a blind sort of acceptance of Bourdieu, which I've been involved in as well. And so now I'm sort of turning a critical eye to that. But that's another issue. What I have done is put together a sort of model of class. And I have to be careful with this, because I show this to somebody, oh, you're just putting everything in boxes and that sort of thing. I'm just trying to think that class is multi-level. A lot of things going on. I like to start with the economic side, right? But I've used the term socio-cultural resources, and of course here you get into Bourdieu's capital to come into this. But also behavior. And again, so there's a lot of Bourdieu running through this, if you like. But also Mike Savage and all the sociologists working is sort of the official default version of class in many contexts today is linked to Bourdieu in some way. Because he was the one who, theoretically anyway, was taking the economic and linking it to socio-cultural elements. And of course, citing people sometimes, not citing people other times. There's lots of, Thorsten Veblen is a very interesting scholar. You go back to 1903, writing about the leisure class in the United States. He talks about taste, he talks about distinction, not in those terms, and yet Bourdieu never cites it, or never cited it. So again, a lot of these ideas have been floating around. And what I'm trying to do is do this and then think, and what I'll be doing this later, look at class. If you look at, for example, a language textbook, can you see aspects of class coming through where perhaps some of these dimensions are sort of part of the package that's being presented in the textbooks. And again, these are not discrete items, and they're interrelated, and also all of this is interrelated, as I said earlier, with all kinds of ways of being, ethnicity, race, gender, and so on. Okay. I'm lost. Oh, now I know where I am. So I changed it. I'm sorry, I got this printed out with notes on it, and I inserted slides, so I might get lost at times. So I can't read my own handwriting. I just wanted to say, one thing is to talk about dimensions of class, and the other thing is what kind of model. And if you look at models of class going way back, you very often, you might have a simple one that might have, upper class, middle class, and working class. And then you might extend that even to 6 categories, being more specific. There are terms like underclass, which we used for a while, and perhaps out of fashion now. But some attempt to capture outcasts, as Bacon calls them, people who are actually outside the economy, if you like, so they can't really be called working class. And recent work in the UK around Mike Savage and his colleagues doing a survey in 2011, the great BBC social class survey. And again, it's a 7-point scale, and you get all these different things. Now, it's not actually a scale. This is slightly different. There's sort of categories of different sectors of the economy in the UK. This is actually very simple, and these are economists, Dumais and Levy. Great guys, because if you go to their webpage, they're constantly posting papers they write in English and French. And sometimes you get the French version first, and then later. So I'm citing here a book that I read in English, and the 2014 book is The Great Bifurcation that they talk about. That's a book in French. I don't know if it's out in English, but about that one. So this is a very basic, what they argue is the way the economy, the way the job market. If you go back to Robert Reich in 1991, he talked about changes in the job market, changes in the class system. And what you're getting is, instead of getting this kind of clear idea that these are the upper class people, the big middle class, working class, you're getting this sort of general middle where the middle class is degraded, and so they kind of join working class, and of course the jobs are actually changing. So people have talked a lot in recent years about this idea of the 1%, even extendable to the 9%, maybe the top 10%, and then there's some sort of huge sort of swath from the 90th percentile down to maybe 20, and maybe there are 20 people living, 20 or downwards of people living in poverty, right? And what they argue is that there was a point where maybe the managerial class was closer to the popular classes, which could have been middle class, normal middle class people, and also working class people. What's happened in recent years is they've moved up. And you can kind of see this, you think about it. You might know people, you might be people in your family. I'm not sure if many academics have this, but maybe there's some wealthy academics, I don't know. But you'll see this, and it's sort of a shift where middle class people might have a 4-bedroom house, a 3-bedroom house, and suddenly they had 6-bedroom houses, or 8-bedroom houses, and 2 swimming pools, and who knows what else. So again, you've seen these shifts in a country, for example, the United States is a very good example, and you see this going on. And right now, what's going on in Spain right now, with the economic crisis, because there are jobs that are being lost and never come back again, is the prospect of having a kind of a 2080 organization, or a 20-60-20. And so what we're finding is the kind of where the bulge was before in class systems in Europe, for example, they get stretched out and everybody's pushed down except for a small minority. Right? And that's where you see the growing inequality. You look at the Gini coefficient, you look at comparisons across countries, this is what's actually going on. Right? I really highly recommend these authors, by the way, they're great.